tyago brahmacharyam prasakshate. The vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in work, words, and mind at all times, under all circumstances, and in all places. No one can perform correct yoga practice through sex indulgence. Brahmacharya is taught, therefore, from childhood, when one has to know that when one has no knowledge of sex life. Children at the age of 5 are sent to the Gurukula, or the place of the spiritual master, and the master trains the young boys in strict discipline of becoming brahmacharis. Without such practice, no one can make advancement in any yoga, whether it be dhyana, jnana, or bhakti. One who, however, follows the rules and regulations of married life, having sexual relationships only with his wife, and that also under regulation, is also called brahmacharya. Such a restrained household of brahmacharya may be accepted in the bhakti, but the jnana and dhyana schools do not even admit household brahmacharis. They require complete abstinence without compromise. In the bhakti school, a household of brahmacharya is allowed controlled sex life, because the cult of bhakti is so powerful that one automatically loses sexual attraction, being engaged in the superior service of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 259, it is said, Viksha vimavartante nidharayasya deninam rasavargyam rasobhyasya patram drishtva nivartate. Where others are forced to restrain themselves from sense gratification, a devotee of the Lord automatically refrains because of superior taste. Other than the devotee, no one has any information of that superior taste. Vigadabhin, one cannot be fearless unless one is fully in Krishna consciousness. The conditioned soul is fearful due to his perverted memory, his forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with Krishna. The Bhagavatam 11.237 says, Bharyam vitya vinivesata syat isat apetasya viparyo smriti. Sorry. Krishna consciousness is the only basis for fearlessness. Therefore, perfect practice is possible for a person who is Krishna conscious. And since the ultimate goal of yoga practice is to see the Lord within, a Krishna conscious person is already the best of all yogis. The principles of yoga system mentioned herein is different from those of the popular so-called yoga societies. Samam kaya shiro grivam dharyanachalam sthira sampekshana sigam swam dishachan valokayam prasatma vigata bhir brahmachari prate siddha manasam yam yamachito yukta ashitamatpara. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, within an agitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon within the heart and make the ultimate goal of life. This is Dhyana Yoga, Chapter 6. Srimad Bhabat Gita, where Krishna continues on a mission to convince Arjuna of how his inability to submit to his religious principles, to act as he was born and trained as a warrior, as a kshatriya, to protect. He had encountered a delusion when he saw his relatives, close ones, teachers, on the opposite side of the battlefield. And that's when he gave up mentally and physically. And he told Krishna that he will not fight because he's not such a person who would kill his own just to gain some material property or land. That's what the war was about. And he's not going to be a person who would do some harm to especially those who he benefited from as teachers, as his relatives, his own kin, just for some material gain that he didn't care for. Even though he is as a kshatriya, he may not give up his duties, and that's where Krishna many times and several times mentioned that such piti is not something of the quality of the kshatriya. Kshatriya does not have the quality. He cannot be pitiful. The brahmanas, those who develop qualities of goodness, they, because they're more philosophically inclined and they're in the line of teaching others, they would have such qualities as pitifulness. They would pity the weak, they would pity the unfortunate. But for the kshatriyas, the main duty is to protect and defend and fight for what is right. That's what they are born and trained from the early childhood, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned in commentary, that the brahmacharis or young children, age of 5, they sent to gurukulis or the schools where they develop in their qualities. As in Vedic times, people grew up developing the qualities they were born with. Like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm talent in persons. So that when we're born, we possess certain qualities that we're not aware that we have. And unless we are told by experts in the field, such as gurus, and guided by gurus in directions where we should develop our qualities, we will know. And that's why when we grow older, we are confused as far as to what our actual, what we really like to do in our life. We don't know what we like to do. That's why we see a lot of young people, including myself, when we go to universities or colleges or schools, we may change our majors just because we don't really know. We think we want that, but next year we decide on something else. And a lot of people, when they graduate, sorry I'm saying trying, they never even touch the profession they graduated in. And so that starts from early age, where control of our senses is prime duties as a human. We as humans, we have a higher intelligence, we have a higher intelligent force. We are able to subdue our senses at our will. We have such power because we're able to perceive our actions and have a memory of results of our actions, and as accumulation of these results, we can act, if we're intelligent enough, to not repeat the mistakes we commit or mistakes we would commit. Like there are 3 kinds of people described in one of the commentaries by Srila Prabhupada, where One would hear that something is bad, and he would never do that just because he hears that. The other one would hear that it's something to do is going to harm him, but he thinks because he will be the one who do it, it may not be the same result, and he will not harmed by that actions. And the other one, the worst kind, is the one who hears, he knows, he experienced that it will harm, and he'll still do it. He will still continue to do something to disadvantage himself in his progress on any level of his progress in his life. So, when we restrain our senses from indulging in sensual activities, we making our intelligence stronger to help our decisions in our life make proper decisions in our life. And yoga process is, as Srimad Bhabat, Gita, describing karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga. There's a physical Ashtanga yoga where it's a beginning where we would meditate on the sound of Om and develop disconnection from our mind, or get distracted by the senses that demanding their attention, animal instinct attentions, like to satisfy the senses, especially in inclination towards the opposite sex, which is the well of material existence. As in Srimad Bhagavatam is described, that the family life is a well of the material existence. We think we're making compromise when we commit to relationship between the opposite sexes, and in our mind we maintain a good human behavior to focus on one person in our sexual preferences, where even that, by standard of Srimad Bhagavatam, is considered to be it's a trap, because it's still a mind trick. The mind plays trick on us, because it feels there's an escape, even if we are practicing, especially when we are practicing seriously spiritual life. The mind will still play a trick on us, that there is still a way to indulge in our sense gratification. Where for yogis, like Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, other yoga practices, they will not allow you to touch opposite sex, especially for men. In strict yoga branches, they are not allowing female practitioners for that purpose, because it is impossible for a female to achieve such a disconnect from sense gratifications. And the male is supposed to get out of the society, like mentioned in this verse in the commentary, and be sitting in a secluded place, absolutely motionless, and not thinking about anything but the Supreme Lord, and meditate upon Him. That's the only way to achieve any advancement in spiritual practice, in spiritual life. And that is more strict and more so in other branches of yoga schools, because they don't allow any contact with opposite sex for a male practitioner, because that deviates a person from path of spiritual advancement. In Bhakti Yoga practice, because of a taste to the Supreme Lord and relationships with the Supreme Lord, when we develop this taste through touching Krishna, through his names, through memorizing his and reciting his pastimes, this taste, if done properly, will take our attention from our constantly demanding for sense gratification, senses, and especially mind. Our mind is dirty. We are born with desires. We came here to pursue desires, to fulfill our desires. That idea of American dream that's spread throughout the world as something that everybody should achieve, or the reason why I came here too, from Russia, was the idea of American dream, because we all heard of it. 3 cars, 2 kids, a house, dogs, and many places in the world can't even desire one thing. I mean, they desire, but they may have 1 or 2, but not all. Like, it's so easy to achieve in America these material accomplishments because it's built on invoking that desire we want to pursue when we're born. We are born here with that specific desire to fulfill our destiny through fulfilling our desires. And in the sense of spiritual advancement, life in places like America is actually a big disadvantage. We are hardly focusing on the spirituality aspect of our life because comfort gives us better conviction. It convinces us greater than what the spiritual life would give us. In places where material advancement is not that high or advanced, we would feel the spiritual advancement has a greater value, has better volume, has weight to it. And if done sincerely, the spiritual practice gives us taste that will take our attention from things that will not satisfy us. We heard many times that we are chewing to chew. The dog threw up whatever. The other dog runs around, picks it up. Oh, it smells good. He thinks it's something that he never tasted before, and he falls into the trap with somebody else's throw. And then we are continually circling the same, fooling ourselves in the same circle that whatever we will do to attain something will get us somewhere where we feel like it will satisfy either our status or our material position. So for the sincere devotee, the main practice is chanting holy names, and it's the main purifying process. It's a main medicine, and it's a main ideal situation where we create in our lifetime during the day, before the day starts, before the day ends, where we're always constantly thinking and remembering Krishna. And that's as good as if you were completely renounced, escaped from the cities, into the forest, sat alone, meditated upon the Paramatma or the Lord within, and observed strict diet, pretty much not eating anything except water and some leaves, and sit steadily, not moving, and never allowing any of your senses or any of the impulses from any of the senses to disturb your meditative state. So the same effect, if not greater, is achieved by simply chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and following principles of spiritual life, studying Shastras, and staying on that path. Our internal being will develop taste for something higher than just satisfying our mundane desires. It's also very hard to have restriction on our desires, as we are full of desires. Our entity, original entity, we want and we pursue something because we want. We don't know what, but we want, and that desire will never cease to exist because we will never cease to exist. And if we substitute our what we desire for, that elevates our consciousness to a place where we will not desire anything that is not related to spiritual. Similarly, like if you have tasted a cake, very, very yummy cake, if somebody will give you a candy, you wouldn't be interested because you have a taste of cake. The cake supersedes the taste of candy. Candy is a simplified sweet, where the cake is more complex, more flavorful, more textured, and such degree it gives you automatic rejection of a lower taste. That's how devotees also reject a food that is not offered to Krishna. We eat food that is offered to Krishna because food offered to Krishna is, in any sense, is way better than any other food. And Bhakti Yoga is based on a principle of it's a better thing than the worst. We're not preaching something that is dull in taste, or it's void of some tone or form. We preach that what you can have is better tasting, better looking, better sounding, better smelling, better touching, better in any way. And that's how devotees automatically not attached to or attracted to anything that is not spiritual or related to Krishna. That's why we learn how to cook for Krishna a specific way so that our mind are captured. So we capture our mind with the tastes that belongs in sattva gunas or above, and transcendental levels, where we don't desire to eat anything but what Krishna touched, or what's called Krishna Prasadam. And Krishna Prasadam is what keeps our focus and attentions away from anything that relates to material, gross, or lower grade activities, lower grade desires, and lower grade thoughts. That's why we occupy our minds with the pastimes of Krishna, because these pastimes supersede any activities that are performed by humans. So the more we attempt to act in that direction, the more benefit and more higher taste we develop. And we never quit learning. our movement is based on the principle of learning. We have to learn every day. If we don't learn something about Krishna every day, it means it's like a gauge. You're not doing something right. You have to learn something every day about Krishna, or find something for yourself new about Krishna. And that's the sign of a devotee's mind. Devotee's mind always anxious to know who is Krishna. We always want to know who is God. First level, of course, it is to, if there is God, know God. But for us as devotees, we anxious to learn more about who is God. And we never quit to, never seems to get to the point where, oh, okay, I know who he is, I know how he looks, how he, I heard, I read, somebody told me, I'm convinced. But every day learning about God is life of a devotee. So as a devotee, we dedicate our life in finding ways to develop greater, deeper love for Krishna. That's alone can save us from lamentation about anything and anybody around us. We lament about our relatives' losses, our children losses, we lament about any kind of losses, and those are very temporary. Sometimes they say time heals, sometimes they say time doesn't heal, and people lose their relatives, their loved ones. But as I mentioned before, the time is a river flow, and on the river flow, we meet each other similarly like two branches of the just two sticks or two leaves on a flowing river, which is there for a moment and then a split. So the same relationship we have with everybody around us, including our own children, our own parents. It's that insignificant, very insignificant moment that we spend with. We don't know these people. Who are they? Who are my parents? Who are my kids? We don't know where they come from. And lamenting about something that doesn't belong to us or not part of us is another trap of Maya, of illusory energy of Krishna, where we take our attention, that it takes our attention from developing our love for Krishna. So, love for Krishna will substitute or takes that lamentation, because we don't belong to this world, nothing is here is ours, we will not come, we don't take anything with us, we didn't come here with anything, we will leave from here with nothing. And on our path of developing love for God will get us freed from Maya. Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
You guys have any questions for me? Sorry, a little boring.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class. You mentioned that we can develop the higher taste. Is that based on sincerity? Is it based on reading? What's the basis of developing the higher taste? And why does it seem to take so long? How does that work?
Well, as I said, an example, if you have a cake and you tasted it, you wouldn't go for a candy next time somebody offers you a choice of cake or candy. No, cake is better tasting. It's just a matter of being there. You don't have to be sincere. You don't have to do anything. Somebody just come and bring you a cake, you take it, eat it. You only have to be sincere enough to listen to somebody who asks you to taste it. That's it. If I tell you this tastes better, you say no. You don't even know if it tastes better or not. So that if you're not sincere that enough, then they won't know. You don't have to be there. And why it takes time to develop higher taste? Well, we're not tasting it, that's why. Means we didn't touch it. We didn't touch it, we didn't taste it, the cake. So maybe it's not our interest to develop the higher taste. The gauge to understand that we have a higher taste or not, we don't touch what is not higher taste. And to touch, to not, like, you will not go and eat meat or spend your time associating with people who will degrade you. Unless you know that what happens to you when engaging in these things degrades you. If you don't know, then we're here, we know. That's why we're here. Those who don't know, they're not here. Any other questions? Is it?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Arati or but Arati or a blessing. Somebody want to see, I don't know where is he.
Okay, we'll have Kirtan now, so everybody will have an opportunity to offer Aarti to Radha Govinda.
Mike.
And you can also take the blessings
Take your mic.
through Mataji as well.